The FIRE movement. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's grown rapidly over the last decade or so, but is it right for everybody? What if I told you there's lots of different types of FIRE? In this video, we're going to talk about 8 different types of FIRE and how you could pursue each one yourself if you want. FIRE is an acronym for Financial Independence Retire Early. In the last decade, it has boomed in popularity. The idea of FIRE is to accumulate as much money as possible, as quickly as possible, with the ultimate goal of retiring as early as possible. Now, as FIRE has grown in popularity, there have been a growing number of people who challenge the mainstream idea of what FIRE is. And a lot of those people are raising questions like, do I have to stop working? Do I have to retire early? And what is financial independence anyway? And after I retire, how much can I spend? Now, really, the truth is there's a different brand of FIRE for all of us. There also seems to be no end to the clever acronyms to describe these different FIRE types. So here are 8 different types of FIRE and some things to consider as you evaluate which one is right for you. Okay, FIRE type number 1 is FI, Financial Independence. This may seem a bit like cheating, and I guess maybe it is, but I wanted to make a distinction and show that there is a difference between financial independence and early retirement, or retire early. The two do not have to exist together at the same time. Financial independence is just simply having enough wealth to cover all of your expenses for the rest of your life without having to seek income from an outside source. And for me, this is the point in life where your assets have grown to a large enough sum that they generate enough income to produce the lifestyle you want, and you can live comfortably the rest of your life. This is a really simple concept to understand, but it doesn't mean that financial independence looks the same for everyone. There are plenty of people who are content to live on less than $30,000 a year in retirement, and some that won't settle for anything less than 6 figures. Now, they both can reach financial independence, but obviously the mathematics to get there are going to be drastically different. FIRE type number 2 is just FIRE, F-I-R-E, Financial Independence Retire Early. The idea was first conceived in the book Your Money, Your Life in 1992, and the idea of the book was to try to align your personal goals with your financial goals so that your finances helped you achieve a higher degree of satisfaction and happiness in life. It may not really seem revolutionary now, but at the time, people didn't think about retiring before their 60s. The idea that you would adjust your working career or cut it short to go live the lifestyle you wanted was pretty uncommon. As Bob Dylan would say, the times they are a-changing. In a 2023 study, a Harris poll found that 37% of millennials plan to retire before the age of 65. Another study by Goldman Sachs showed that 25% of Gen Zers plan to retire before the age of 55. It's safe to say that FIRE has moved beyond a fad and is into the mainstream. So what is it? I'm generalizing, but FIRE followers basically save 50% up to 80% of their income in order to fund an early retirement. So step 1 for them is to sock away as much cash as you can, live frugally, try to build up a nest egg as quickly as you can so you can retire in your 30s or 40s. Step 2 is retire. For most, the goal is to have 25 times their annual expenses. This aligns with the 4% rule that we've talked about in other videos. So if someone was spending $60,000 annually, they need a $1.5 million portfolio because that's 25 times $60,000 in order to support their lifestyle. Step 3 is to live frugally. One characteristic of the typical mainstream FIRE follower is that they don't generate a lot of expenses. Some of them don't buy cars. They generally live in homes that are paid for. They don't travel extravagantly, live extravagantly, buy expensive things. They tend to spend less in order to make their nest egg last as long as possible. And number 3 is lean FIRE. The hallmark of lean FIRE is to live frugally in order to stretch your retirement or your nest egg as far as possible. Naturally, the less you spend in retirement, the less of a nest egg you'll need to facilitate that. So the point is you'll need to save less if you spend less. So these folks are content to have a smaller, more modest lifestyle in retirement so that they can retire earlier. Typically, the folks in this group that retire early have no debt, they live frugally, and they watch a budget very carefully. And a lot of these folks live less traditional lifestyles. I already talked about not having cars. They may take public transportation or ride bikes different places. They don't take extravagant vacations. And a lot of people throw stones at lean FIREs because they don't think that they're living much of a life. Well, to each his own, right? I wouldn't be critical of the way someone wants to live their retirement. That's their prerogative. I think there's a lot to be said for the hyper-efficient way lean FIREs live, even if you don't plan to have a retirement like that yourself. Which brings us to FIRE type number 4, fat FIRE. Now, we've talked about lean FIRE. FIRE is obviously the exact opposite of that. FIREs want a more lavish lifestyle in retirement. As a result, they plan to save an even larger nest egg. And this also may mean that FIREs work a little longer to get there. Now, the one thing, obviously I'm not going to go into detail about, they'll travel more, they'll eat more, they'll fly first class, I guess, and get nicer hotels. All those little things and nuances you'd expect with a more lavish lifestyle. But one thing that comes with being a fat FIRE that you don't necessarily have with lean FIRE is flexibility. That larger nest egg gives you more cushion, more room, if you will, to adjust when times are good, when times are bad. You can alter your spending a little more and kind of absorb hits in the market. So that's one benefit of a fat FIRE. Hey, if you're enjoying this video, if I could get you to please click the like and subscribe buttons below. It's a huge, huge help to our channel. Helps get the word out about what we're doing, helps us teach other people about finance. All right, FIRE type number 5 is Barista FIRE. So one of the real challenges to early retirement is covering expenses that you'd normally get through employer benefits like healthcare. Healthcare is super, super expensive if you buy it on your own. So Barista FIRE is kind of a way you don't quit working entirely, but you work a job maybe part-time, or you get a job with a lot of more flexibility or maybe less responsibility, but it still has medical benefits. Barista FIRE is also a good option for those who think they want to retire early, but they're not sure they're ready to completely pull the plug on work. For a lot of people, there's a big mental challenge to go from an earner your whole life to a spender in retirement. And Barista FIRE can allow them to make that transition kind of smoothly. All right, FIRE type number 6 is Coast FIRE. The idea of Coast FIRE is you work very hard in the beginning, just like regular FIRE, just like lean FIRE, fat FIRE. You try to build up a large nest egg of assets, but then after you build that up, you kind of coast. You take it easy, you back off a bit, you don't contribute as much, and you allow the balance of your assets to grow on their own through compound interest, and you save less in your 30s, 40s, or later as you're working in your career. Now naturally, the earlier you can save money, the more time you have for compounding interest to work its magic. And Coast FIRE really provides you with a lot of flexibility down the road. As a parent, I'm thinking about if you have kids, you get into bigger homes, you get into bigger, safer cars, you have a lot more expenses. That can really pull away from your ability to save for retirement. If you're Coast FIRE, then you've got a lot of that heavy lifting done, and it's kind of like you built a snowball. Now it's rolling down a hill and it's gathering mass, and you can worry less about that as you're aging, trying to raise a family. Or maybe you work in a stressful job and you just kill it for a few years, maybe a decade or two, but you want to get away from that as you get older. This is another opportunity to do things that way. Okay, FIRE type number 7 is kind of like a catch-all. There are actually a lot of other FIREs I'm not going to go into because the video will be long enough as it is. I'll list a few of those here. Traditional FIRE, which we've kind of already covered. Obese FIRE, which is like an even fatter fat FIRE. Slow FIRE, Flamingo FIRE, Fiber, Baby FIRE. That's just to name a few. So ultimately, all these share the common component of financial independence. And I'm listing them here just to show you there's an endless array of possibilities. Financial independence is not a new concept. Yes, we have an acronym FIRE that sounds really cool, and it's a movement or whatever, and we can all sort of attach some likeness or perception or maybe paint a picture in our head of what that looks like, but it doesn't have to look like everyone else's. It can be whatever you want it to be. And it was our primary motive in creating the Next Dollar Roadmap. If you go to our website and check it out, really the Next Dollar Roadmap is just a 10-stage process for working through your life financially. And the ultimate goal, the end result, milestone 9, is total financial independence. The goal is for you to be in control, to live your life on your terms, but you do have to plan in order to achieve financial independence. Hopefully you'll take some of the FIRE types we presented here to formulate your own personal view of what financial independence looks like for you, and you can begin to formulate a plan to get there. All right, FIRE type number 8 is FIASAPRWIGAR. 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 It's a really terrible acronym, but what it stands for is financial independence as soon as possible, retire when I'm good and ready. And this is the best way I can describe my FIRE type. Basically what it means is I'm going to pursue financial independence as quickly as I possibly can because it opens options. I don't necessarily want to stop working. I have a job that I really enjoy, and I probably will continue to do it even after I reach financial independence because I'm not trying to leave it or run away from it. If you'd asked me in my 20s,
if I would leave work as soon as I could, I'd have said absolutely. But as I've grown, my perspective has changed. I look at things a little differently. So now I'm not sure that I would walk away. On the other hand, not being financially independent is kind of an unsettling thing for me. In 2015, I was let go from a job. Turns out the company I was working for at the time wasn't doing well financially. They ended up closing their doors. But it wasn't a good feeling going home knowing that I needed a job. I needed to replace that income. I had no choice. I had to find one. That left me in a state of dependence and feeling like I didn't have control, and I didn't like that at all. So that motivated me to get to financial independence as quickly as possible. So the next time, if there is a next time, if I were let go from a job, at least I could do so without the concern of having to find another source of income to provide for my family. Now, ultimately, money is a tool. It will never make you happier, but it can provide flexibility that will allow you to absorb some of the highs and lows of life. Getting to financial independence as soon as possible gives you a lot more options than being obligated to a job will otherwise. We've got 8 types of FIRE listed. Now I want to talk about 3 challenges that you'll face if you do decide to retire early. First is medical costs. We hit on this just a little bit when we talked about Barista FIRE. This is a significant impact. If you think about traditional insurance that you get through your employer, that's a huge cost savings to you and your family. And that goes away when you leave the workforce. So that's something you need to think about. Now, it's possible your employer will give you retirement medical benefits. It may be a little cheaper and it may allow you to continue to participate in group insurance, and it won't be quite as expensive as an exchange, but it's still a significant cost to you. So you need to think about that before you retire early. A second issue is early withdrawal penalties from tax advantage retirement accounts. Most of these won't allow you to make qualified withdrawals until age 59 and a half. If you retire from the employer you work for, your 401k, you can begin taking withdrawals from that at age 55 without a penalty. There are some workarounds. We have a post on our website. I'll put a link in the description below. Some ways you can get to that, but it's not simple. So you need to think about that too if you're going to retire early. The third thing I will warn you about is boredom. And I can't tell you this from experience because I've never retired. But one thing you really need to think about is, what are you going to do with all that time? Think about how many hours, 40 hours a week or 40 plus, depending on your job, is and how much it took from your life. A lot of the FIRE blogs and books and things I've read, people go back to work after they FIRE. They think that they're going to be happier in retirement, at a young age. And what they find is maybe they actually miss work. They miss interacting with other people. They miss having a challenge, a goal, a focus, a purpose. So think about that a lot before you step away, because it's a lot harder to go back to a job once you leave it. Be sure that you think about it clearly, evaluate it, and know that you're ready to step away before you do. Well, there you go. 8 different types of FIRE. There are many more that we didn't cover, but hopefully you see the point. Your financial independence goal, your retirement, is completely up to you. There's no one right way to do it. And that's one of the great things about personal finance. It also makes it a bit challenging because you have to think about all the different steps and pieces that have to go into place, and you have to make a plan to reach your goals. I'd encourage you to spend time thinking about your own plan. Once you have it, revisit it every once in a while, tweak it, be flexible with it, because it'll change over the long run. And we have plenty of information on our website, martinmoney.com, about financial independence. I encourage you to go over there and check it out. We'll have the written form of this video in the description below and a link to it. We also invite you to check us out on our social media channels below. And as always, we're grateful for your interest in what we're doing. God bless and take care.